Hell's Angel caught a father, abandoning his newborn in a drain. What happened next changed everything. The sky over Hollow Creek hung dark and heavy, that deep blue color right before the sun decides to show up. The streets were empty. They usually were. Cole Harrison rode slow through the middle of town, the deep growl of his motorcycle bouncing off buildings that hadn't seen life in years. His headlight cut through the morning mist like a knife. Old factories lined both sides of the road. Their windows were broken. Their walls were streaked with rust that ran down like tears. Weeds pushed up through cracks in the parking lots where workers once parked their cars, back when there were still jobs to drive to. Hollow Creek used to be somebody. Now it was just a place people passed through, or a place people got stuck in when they had nowhere else to go. Cole knew that feeling well. He was a big man, 45 years old, with a body built by hard living. His leather vest was worn soft from years on the road. A long beard, more gray now than brown, covered his jaw. Tattoos crawled up both arms, faded blue lines telling stories most folks never bothered to ask about. When people saw Cole coming, they crossed the street. They pulled their kids a little closer. They locked their car doors. Before you continue listening, please let me know where in the world are you watching from today. Now back to the story. He was used to it. He'd stopped trying to explain himself a long time ago. Cole had just come from Danny Whitaker's place, an old army buddy who lived at the edge of town in a trailer that leaked when it rained. Danny's hands shook too much these days to do much of anything. The war had taken pieces of him that never came back. So Cole came by when he could, fixed the busted heater, brought groceries, sat and listened to the same old stories he'd heard 100 times before. Tucked inside his jacket, close to his chest, Cole carried something small and soft. A little stuffed rabbit, brown with floppy ears and a stitched-on smile. He'd bought it for Danny's granddaughter, who was turning 3 next week. He'd spent 20 minutes at the store picking it out. Turned the thing over in his rough hands, checking that the seams were strong and the eyes were sewn on tight so a baby couldn't pull them loose and choke. Nobody would ever believe it. A man like him, standing in a toy aisle, worried about button eyes. That was the thing about Cole. The world only ever saw the outside. The road curved out past the last of the buildings. Here the town gave way to open ground, flat and gray in the early light. An old drainage canal ran alongside the road, a long concrete channel built decades ago to carry rainwater away from the factories. Now it sat mostly dry, filled with dead leaves and trash, and the kind of silence that made a place feel forgotten. Cole liked this stretch. It was quiet. Nobody around to stare, just him and the machine and the wind pulling at his beard. Then he heard it. At first he thought it was the wind, a thin, high sound cutting through the rumble of his engine. He almost kept going, almost told himself it was nothing. But something made him ease off the throttle. He heard it again. Cole's heart went still in his chest. It was a cry, not an animal, not a cat or a bird or a fox out hunting in the dark. He'd heard all those before, and this was none of them. This was something else, something that grabbed hold of a place deep inside him he'd kept locked up for years. It was a baby, a newborn by the sound of it, small and weak and desperate, out here, in the cold, in the dark, alone. Cole squeezed the brakes hard. The motorcycle slid to a stop on the gravel shoulder, the engine ticking as he cut it off. Silence rushed in, and through that silence came the cry again, louder now, coming from somewhere down in the canal. His hands moved before his mind caught up. He pulled off his helmet and set it on the seat. The morning air was sharp and cold against his face. He stood there for 1 second, listening, making sure. Then he walked toward the sound. The concrete lip of the canal was slick with morning dew. Cole didn't care. He swung one leg over the edge and climbed down, his heavy boots scraping against the sloped wall. Gravel and old leaves shifted under him. He nearly slipped once, caught himself with one big hand pressed flat against the cold concrete, and kept moving. The crying was louder now. Closer. At the bottom of the channel, half hidden in the shadow of the wall, he saw it. A small bundle. A blanket, thin and faded. The kind of blanket that had been washed so many times the color had bled right out of it. And inside that blanket, moving, twisting, crying with everything it had, was a baby. Cole dropped to his knees. "Oh, no," he breathed. "No, no, no." His hands that had broken things and fought men twice his size, hands that folks crossed the street to avoid, reached down as gentle as he knew how. He scooped the bundle up against his chest. The baby was tiny. So tiny. A little girl, he could tell, her face red and scrunched up from the cold and the crying. Her skin felt like ice against his fingers. "I got you," Cole whispered. "I got you now. You're okay. You're okay." He pulled open his leather vest and tucked her inside against the warmth of his body, cradling her head the way he'd seen women do 1,000 times, but had never once done himself. The little stuffed rabbit shifted in his jacket, pressed now between the baby and his chest. The crying softened. Just a little. Like she knew. And then, out of the corner of his eye, Cole saw movement. Up on the road, above the far edge of the canal, a figure was walking away. A young man. Thin, hunched into himself, his shoulders shaking. He wore a jacket too small for the cold, and shoes coming apart at the seams. He was walking fast, walking like he couldn't get away quick enough. But even from here, even in the gray half-light, Cole could see the shine of tears running down the young man's face. Something inside Cole went white-hot. "Hey!" His voice cracked across the empty ground like a whip. "Hey, you stop right there!" The young man froze. His whole body went stiff. Cole was already moving, climbing back up the slope with the baby held tight against him, one arm out for balance. His boots dug into the concrete. His breath came fast and hard. When he reached the top, he crossed the gap between them in long strides, and the young man turned around slow, like a boy caught doing something terrible. He couldn't have been more than 24. His face was young, too young, with soft features and eyes swollen from crying. He held up both hands, but not to fight. To beg. "Please," the young man said. His voice broke on the word. "Please don't." Cole stopped a few feet away. His chest was heaving. Under his jacket, the baby had gone quiet, warm now, breathing soft against him. He could feel her little heart beating fast as a bird's. "This yours?" Cole asked. His voice was low, dangerous. "This baby yours?" The young man's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His eyes went to the bundle inside Cole's vest, and his whole face crumpled like paper. "Yes," he whispered. "You left her." Cole took a step closer. "You left this baby in a drain, in the cold, to die." "No." The young man shook his head hard, tears flying loose. "No, I wasn't. I didn't want. I never wanted." He pressed the back of his hand against his mouth and dragged in a shaking breath. "She's my daughter. Her name's Emma Rose." "Then you tell me right now." Cole's words came out slow and heavy, each one landing like a stone. "You tell me why a father walks away from his own little girl and leaves her in a ditch." The young man's knees seemed to go soft under him. He caught himself, swaying, and when he looked up at Cole, his eyes were full of a pain so deep it stopped Cole cold. "Because I can't give her anything," he said. I got no home, no money, no job, nothing. His voice dropped to almost nothing. I left her because somebody else can give her the life I can't. Somebody good. Somebody who won't fail her the way I would. Cole stood there, the words hanging in the cold air between them. He'd heard a lot of excuses in his life. Men who lied to his face. Men who ran when things got hard. He knew the sound of a coward. And this wasn't it. The young man in front of him wasn't running from something he'd done wrong. He was running from something that was breaking him in half. "Sit down," Cole said. The young man blinked. "What? You look like you're about to fall over. Sit." Slow, unsure, the young man sank down onto the low concrete edge of the canal. He put his face in his hands, and his shoulders shook. Cole stayed standing, one arm still curled around the baby inside his vest. The sky over Hollow Creek was turning pale now, gray fading into a soft pink at the edges. Somewhere far off, a bird started to sing like the world was any kind of normal. "Start at the beginning," Cole said. "Whole thing, and don't you dare leave nothing out." The young man drew in a breath that rattled. "My name's Ryan," he said. "Ryan Mitchell." He wiped his face with the back of his sleeve. "I had a job. Good one. I fixed cars over at Reed's shop, been there 2 years. I was good at it. Real good." A sad little smile touched his mouth and vanished. "Then everything just fell apart." "How?" Ryan stared at the ground. "I lost it. Lost the job. And then I couldn't make rent, so they took the apartment too. 1 month I had a home and a paycheck, and a girl I loved more than anything. Next month I had nothing but the clothes on my back." His voice cracked. "Nothing." Cole watched him careful. "The girl, Emma Rose's mother." Ryan's whole body went still. When he spoke again, his voice was barely there. "Emma. Her name was Emma too. That's why I named the baby after her." He pressed his lips together hard, fighting to hold himself together. "She died. Having the baby. Something went wrong and the doctors, they couldn't." He stopped, swallowed. "She was fine 1 minute and gone the next. And I was standing right there and I couldn't do a single thing to stop it." The sun broke over the far buildings, throwing long gold light across the canal. It caught the tears on Ryan's face and made them shine. "So it's just me now," Ryan went on. "Me and a baby I got no way to feed, no place to keep her warm, no money for a doctor if she gets sick." He looked up, and his eyes begged Cole to understand. "I walked around all night holding her, trying to figure out what to do, and I kept thinking, she deserves better than a dad who can't even keep a roof over her head. She deserves somebody who can give her a real life." "So you left her in a ditch," Cole said. But the anger was gone from his voice now. It had drained clean out. "I left her where somebody would find her," Ryan whispered. "Where somebody better than me would take her and love her right." He covered his mouth again. "I know how it looks. I know. But I swear to you, mister, I love that little girl more than I ever loved anything in my whole life. That's why I did it, because I love her." Cole looked down. Inside his vest, the baby stirred, her tiny fist working its way loose from the blanket. She let out a soft, sleepy sound. Her fingers, no bigger than matchsticks, brushed against the rough fabric of his shirt and curled there like she was holding on. Something moved in Cole's chest, something old and buried and aching. He'd told himself a long time ago that he was done. Done caring. Done letting people in. Everybody left eventually. Everybody he'd ever loved got taken away. Easier to stay alone, safer. But he looked at that tiny hand holding on to him, and he knew, sure as he'd ever known anything, that he could not walk away from this. "I ain't leaving her here," Cole said. Ryan looked up, startled. "You hear me?" Cole met his eyes. "This baby's coming with me. She's gonna be warm. She's gonna be safe. That much I can promise." Ryan's face broke open with something that was half relief and half grief. He got to his feet, unsteady, and looked at his daughter one last time, tucked safe against the big man's chest. "Thank you," Ryan breathed. "Thank you." Then he took a step back, and another. "I can't explain all of it," he said, backing away, tears streaming free now. "Not yet, but someday I will, I promise you that. Someday I'll come back and tell you everything." And then he turned and walked away into the gold morning light, his shoulders shaking, leaving his whole heart behind in the arms of a stranger. The Hollow Creek Medical Clinic sat at the end of Main Street, a low brick building with a faded sign and windows that hadn't been washed in years. Cole pushed through the glass doors just as the sun cleared the rooftops, and the whole waiting room went quiet. A woman at the front desk froze with her coffee halfway to her mouth. An old man in a corner chair sat up straight. Everybody stared. They saw what they always saw: the leather vest, worn soft with years, the long gray-streaked beard, the tattoos crawling up both arms, the heavy boots that thudded on the tile floor, a big, dangerous-looking man who had no business walking into a quiet clinic at dawn. Then they saw the baby. Cole crossed the room fast, both arms wrapped around the small bundle against his chest. "I need help," he said. His voice was low and rough, but there was something underneath it that made the woman at the desk set her coffee down with a shaking hand. "This baby's cold, real cold. Found her outside." For a second, nobody moved. The woman's eyes darted to the phone, to the door, like she was deciding whether to call somebody. Then a second nurse came around the corner, and everything changed. She was young, maybe 29, with dark hair pulled back and kind eyes that took in the whole scene in a single heartbeat. She didn't look at the vest. She didn't look at the tattoos or the beard. She looked at the blanket in Cole's arms, and she was already moving. "Bring her back here," the nurse said. "Now, come on." Cole followed her through a swinging door into a small exam room. She snapped on a bright light and pulled a clean blanket from a warmer on the wall. "Set her down here, gentle," she said. "That's it. Good." Cole laid the baby down on the padded table like she was made of glass. His huge hands hovered over her a second, not wanting to let go. The nurse leaned in close, pressing 2 fingers against the baby's tiny chest. She listened. She checked the little one's color, her breathing, the temperature of her skin. "How long was she out there?" she asked, not looking up. "Don't know for sure," Cole said. "Hour, maybe more. It was cold last night." It was. The nurse wrapped the warm blanket snug around the baby, tucking it under her chin. She rubbed the little feet between her palms, quick and careful. "Come on, sweet girl. Let's warm you up. You're all right now. You're all right." Cole stood back against the wall, filling half the small room, and watched her work. His jaw was tight. His hands hung useless at his sides. Slowly, the baby's color started to come back. A little pink crept into her cheeks. She squirmed under the blanket and let out a thin, cranky cry, and the nurse laughed under her breath, soft and relieved. "There it is," she said. "That's a good sound. That's the best sound in the world right there." She checked the baby over one more time, top to bottom. Then she straightened up and let out a long breath. "She's going to be okay," she said. "She's a little fighter. Whoever this one is, she wasn't ready to give up." She turned and looked at Cole full on for the first time. You saved her life. You know that? A little longer out there, and we'd be having a very different morning." Cole didn't say anything. He just looked at the baby. "I'm Lily," the nurse said. "Lily Bennett." "Cole," he said. She waited, like she expected him to say more, to explain himself. He didn't. He just stepped closer to the table and looked down at that small face, all scrunched and red and alive. The hours stretched on. The clinic filled up and emptied out. Doctors came and went, giving Cole wary looks and wide berths. Lily brought the baby a proper bottle and showed Cole how to hold her while she fed. And when night came, and the lights dimmed low, Lily peeked in one last time before her shift ended. Cole was still there. He hadn't moved. He sat in a hard plastic chair beside the little bassinet, his big shoulders hunched, one rough finger resting inside that tiny curled fist. He wasn't asleep. He was just watching her breathe, like he was afraid to look away. Lily stood in the doorway a long moment, and something in her chest went soft and warm. The man everybody in town crossed the street to avoid. Sitting up all night, guarding a baby who wasn't his. Morning light crept through the dusty blinds and fell across the exam room floor. Lily came back on shift with 2 cups of coffee, still warm in her hands. She figured she'd find the chair empty. Figured the big man had finally gone home once he knew the baby was safe. But there he was. Cole sat exactly where she'd left him the night before. Same hard plastic chair, same hunched shoulders. His eyes were red at the edges, and there was a heaviness in the way he held himself, like a man who'd carried something all night and hadn't set it down once. The baby slept in the little bassinet beside him, her tiny chest rising and falling, and Cole watched her like the whole world might fall apart if he blinked. Lily stepped in quiet. She set one of the coffees on the counter near his elbow. "You didn't leave," she said. Cole's voice came out rough from disuse. "Didn't seem right, too." Lily pulled up a rolling stool and sat across from him. She looked at him for a long moment, the lines around his eyes, the gray in his beard, the tattoos that scared half the town, and the gentle way his finger still rested near the baby's hand. "Can I ask you something?" she said. He gave a small nod. "Why do you care so much?" She kept her voice soft, not accusing, just curious. "You don't know this baby. You've got no reason to sit in a plastic chair all night in a place where half the folks looked at you like you might rob the place. Most people would have dropped her off and gone home. You didn't, so why? Why does it matter this much to you?" For a while, Cole didn't answer. He looked down at his own hands, big and scarred, turning them over slow like he was reading something written there. "Had a brother," he said finally. "Younger than me. Danny." He said the name careful, like it still hurt to hold it in his mouth. "Good kid. Better than me by a mile. But he got sick. In his head, I mean. The kind of sick people don't understand." Lily stayed very still. She didn't reach for her coffee. She didn't move at all. "He looked rough," Cole went on. "Long hair, old coat. Talked to himself sometimes when it got bad. And folks, they'd see him coming and they'd cross the street. Same way they do me now." A short, bitter breath came out of him. He needed help. Real help. And every place we went, every door, people took one look and decided what he was. Trouble, danger, somebody else's problem. His jaw worked. He was quiet a moment. "One night it got real bad. He came to me and I told him I'd handle it in the morning. Told him to sleep it off." Cole's voice dropped low. "I was tired. I was thinking about myself. And in the morning he was gone. Walked out into the cold and nobody stopped to help him. Nobody looked twice. He was just a scary-looking kid to them. Just somebody to walk around." He lifted his eyes to Lily's then, and the pain in them was so raw she had to breathe through it. They found him 2 days later, Cole said. Cold, alone. Nobody had reached out a hand, not one person. And I keep thinking, all it would have taken. One person stopping, one person seeing him instead of looking away. The room was silent. Outside a car passed. The baby sighed in her sleep. So when I heard her crying out there, Cole said, nodding toward the bassinet, in the cold, with nobody coming, I couldn't walk around. Not this time. I don't get to walk around anymore. Lily felt her throat tighten. She'd seen a lot of hurt in this clinic. Broken bones, broken hearts. But she'd rarely seen a man let himself be seen the way Cole just had. She understood now. The rough exterior, the anger the whole town feared. It wasn't hardness at all. It was a wound. A man punishing himself for a door he never opened. Cole, she said gently. You're stopping now. That counts. It counts more than you know. He didn't answer. But something in his shoulders eased, just a little. And when he looked at her, the wariness that had been there since he walked through those glass doors was gone. Between them, quiet as morning light, trust began to grow. The story moved through Hollow Creek the way stories always did in small towns. Quiet at first, then everywhere at once. It started at the diner on Main Street. Somebody's cousin knew a nurse at the clinic. That nurse told her neighbor over the back fence. By Tuesday, the man behind the counter at the hardware store was telling it to anyone who'd stand still long enough. You hear about that biker? He'd say, leaning close. Found a baby out in the old drain by the factory road. Freezing cold she was, wrapped in nothing but a thin blanket. And that big fella, the scary one, he sat with her all night at the clinic, wouldn't leave her side. For years, folks in Hollow Creek had a way of looking at Cole. They'd hear the rumble of his motorcycle coming down the street, and they'd find something else to do. Cross to the far sidewalk, pull their kids a little closer, look at their shoes until the sound faded. They'd built a whole story about him without ever asking him a single question. But this new story didn't fit the old one. Old Mrs. Abernathy, who ran the flower shop and had complained about the noise from those bikers for a decade, stopped Lily outside the clinic one morning. Is it true? She asked, clutching her sweater at the collar. About the baby? It's true, Lily said. The old woman was quiet a moment. Her eyes went soft and far away. My Harold and I never could have children, she said. All those years. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small knitted blanket, pale yellow, soft as a cloud. I make these. For the church. Would the little one have use for it? Lily took it gently. She'd love it. That was how it began. A blanket here, a casserole there. A man from the tire shop dropped off a box of diapers without saying a word, just set it on the counter and tipped his cap, and walked back out. The bakery sent over warm rolls. Somebody left a stuffed bear, brand new, the tag still on it, sitting outside the clinic door with a note that just said, For the baby, God bless the man who found her. Cole didn't know what to do with any of it. When Lily showed him the pile of gifts stacking up in the corner, he just stood there with his arms crossed, staring like the whole thing might be some kind of trick. They're scared of me, he said. Been scared of me for years. Maybe they were scared of who they thought you were, Lily said. This is different. This is who you actually are. He didn't say anything to that, but he picked up the yellow blanket and looked at it a long time. Then he laid it over the baby, careful, tucking the edges just so. The days passed, gentle. The baby got stronger. Her cheeks pinked up. She started making little sounds that weren't crying, small coos that made even the toughest nurse on staff melt. Cole came by every single day, He'd sit in that plastic chair and let her wrap her whole hand around one of his fingers. Then, on the 5th morning, everything shifted. Lily arrived early and found an envelope taped to the glass front door of the clinic. Her name wasn't on it. Nobody's was. Just one word, written in shaky letters. Please. She peeled it off and opened it right there in the cold morning air. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper, folded twice. The creases worn soft, like it had been folded and unfolded many times before he found the courage to leave it. I know how this looks. I know what you all think of me. But I swear on everything I've got left, I didn't leave her because I stopped loving her. I left her because I love her more than my own life. She isn't safe with me right now. There are people who want to hurt her, and as long as she's near me, they can find her. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make it so I can protect her. And when I can, I'll come back. I'll come back for my daughter. Please keep her safe until I do. Her name is Emma Rose, after her mother. Please. Ryan. Lily read it twice. Then she folded it back up and went inside to find Cole. He was in the chair, as always. She handed him the note without a word. He read it slow. When he finished, he didn't get angry. He didn't say a thing at first. He just looked down at the baby, at Emma Rose, sleeping under the yellow blanket. People who want to hurt her, he said finally, quiet. A man doesn't write that unless it's true. You believe him? Lily asked. Cole stood. He handed the note back to her, gentle, and his eyes had that hard, steady look she was learning to trust. I believe there's more to this than a scared kid running off, he said, and I aim to find out what. Cole started where any man starts when he wants to know somebody. He started with their hands. A mechanic, he told Lily, standing in the clinic hallway with a paper cup of coffee gone cold in his fist. His note. The way it was folded over and over. That's a man who works with his hands. Nervous energy. And there's grease worked into that paper. You don't get that out. I'd bet my bike he turned wrenches for a living. Lily tilted her head. You got all that from a piece of paper? You spend enough years being looked at wrong. You learn to look at everything real close, Cole said. It took them 2 days. Lily had a way with people that Cole did not. Where he made folks nervous, she made them talk. She smiled at the woman who ran the county records office. She brought muffins to the man at the unemployment desk. And piece by piece, a picture started coming together. Ryan Mitchell. 24 years old. Worked 3 years at Reed's Auto on the edge of town. By every account, the best young mechanic anybody had seen come through in years. Thomas Reed said the kid could listen to an engine and tell you what was wrong before he even popped the hood, Lily said, reading from the notes she'd scratched onto a pad. Never missed a day, never complained. Reed said he'd have made him a partner one day. So what happened? Cole asked. That was the part that didn't sit right. Because Ryan hadn't been fired for being lazy. He hadn't been let go because work dried up. He'd just stopped coming in one day, near 6 months back. No warning, no goodbye. Thomas Reed had called and called. Ryan never answered. Then the apartment. Cole tracked down the landlord, a heavy-set man named Pruitt, who chewed a toothpick the whole conversation. Good tenant, Pruitt said. Paid early most months. Him and that girl of his, they were fixing the place up nice. Painted the little room for the baby coming. Then, boom, he can't make rent. Not 1 month, not the next. Told me his family cut him off. I felt bad for the kid, I did. But I got bills, too. His family, Cole repeated. Rich family, I heard, Pruitt said, shifting the toothpick. The kind that don't cut a boy off unless he crossed him somehow. Cole and Lily sat in her small car outside the empty apartment building that evening, the streetlight buzzing overhead. None of it adds up, Cole said. A man doesn't go from best mechanic in town, painting a nursery, to sleeping rough and leaving his baby in a drain. Not in 6 months. Not unless something knocked the legs out from under him all at once. Lily was quiet. Then she pulled out her phone. There's one thing we haven't looked at. Her, the mother, Emma. Cole watched her scroll. The baby's named after her, Lily said softly. And Ryan wrote that people want to hurt Emma Rose. People, not him. So maybe this started with her mother. It took Lily 20 minutes to find the news item. Small, buried, 6 months old. Local woman dies in childbirth. Emma Caldwell, 23. But it was the line below it that made Cole go cold. Emma Caldwell had, weeks before her death, filed a complaint, a report with the State Environmental Office, against a company that dumped waste into the creek beds north of town. A company owned, quietly, through 3 other names, by the Mitchell family. The same Mitchells who'd cut Ryan off. Cole set the phone down slow. His hands, big and scarred, had gone very still on his knees. She found something, he said. Emma found something she wasn't supposed to, and she wrote it down. She reported it. He looked at Lily, and something in his chest was breaking open and rebuilding all at once. That's Ryan's family, the Mitchells. They didn't just cut him off. They came after him, because his girl found the truth. And when she died, that truth didn't die with her. It's still out there. And the baby... His voice caught. The baby's the last piece of her. The last thread back to what Emma knew. Lily's eyes filled. He didn't abandon her. No. Cole shook his head slow, and his voice came out rough and certain. He was trying to save her life. Get her far enough from him that they couldn't use her to get to him. That boy didn't leave his daughter because he stopped loving her. He stared out at the dark street. He left her because loving her was the only weapon he had left. The morning came gray and cool over Hollow Creek. Cole hadn't slept much. He sat in the back room of Lily's small house, a rented place with peeling paint and a garden gone wild, and he held a bottle in one hand while the baby fed in the crook of his arm. Emma Rose. He'd started calling her by her full name. It felt right, like it honored something. Easy now, he murmured. Easy, little one. His voice, gravel from decades of cigarettes he no longer smoked, softened around her. She was so small. Her whole hand could wrap around just one of his fingers. And it did, gripping tight like she knew he was all she had this morning. Lily came in carrying an armful of things. A second-hand crib she'd found. Blankets, a box of diapers from the clinic supply. Nurse Bennett coming through, she said, setting it all down. Figured we'd make this room hers for now. Nobody knows she's here. That matters. Cole nodded. He looked around the little room. It was safe. Tucked at the back of the house, one window facing the fenced yard, one door. He'd already checked both twice. You always case a room like that? Lily asked, watching him. Old habit. He shifted the baby higher. You learn to know your exits, where the trouble comes from. There's no trouble here, Cole. He met her eyes. There's trouble everywhere. I just aim to be standing between it and her. Lily didn't argue. She started setting up the crib, and Cole watched her hands work, quick and sure. His own hands felt too big for this. Too rough. He'd broken jaws with these hands. Now they were meant to hold something that weighed less than a bag of groceries. They worked through the morning. Lily showed him how to mix the formula right, how to test it on his wrist. She showed him how to fold the blanket into a snug little wrap so the baby felt held even when she was set down. They call it swaddling, Lily said. Makes them feel safe, like being held. Cole practiced. His first few tries came out lopsided. The blanket bunched, and Emma Rose squirmed and fussed. But he kept at it. He didn't quit. By the fourth try, the little bundle came out neat and tight, and the baby settled, and Cole stared down at his own handiwork like he'd built an engine from scratch. "There," he said quietly. "There you go." Lily smiled. "You're a natural." "No," Cole said. "I'm just stubborn." The day slipped by. Between feedings, Cole made calls. He reached out to a man he trusted. Another rider, quiet and careful, asked him to keep an ear low to the ground about the Mitchells. He wrote things down on a pad in his blocky handwriting. Emma Caldwell, Environmental Office, Reed's Auto. He circled Thomas Reed's name twice. But the baby needed him more than the pad did. Every hour, something. A cry, a diaper, a feeding, a soothing when the crying wouldn't stop. By evening, Cole was worn thin. Emma Rose wouldn't settle. She'd fed and been changed and swaddled, and still she cried, a thin, miserable wail that filled the little house and would not stop. Cole paced. He bounced her the way Lily showed him. He hummed low, an old song his mother used to sing before everything went wrong in his life. Nothing worked. "Come on now," he whispered, and his voice cracked in a way it hadn't in years. "Come on. I got you. I got you. I swear I do." Lily had gone to the store. It was just him. Just Cole Harrison, 45 years old, a man grown men crossed the street to avoid, standing in a dim back room begging a newborn to stop hurting. And then something happened in his chest. It wasn't frustration. It was older than that. Deeper. It was the feeling he'd spent 20 years shoving down under leather and silence, and the roar of an engine loud enough to drown out thought. It was the feeling of caring about somebody so much it scared you. He remembered his brother. Small once, too. Trusting him once, too. Cole's eyes stung. He blinked hard, but the tears came anyway, sliding down into his beard, the first he'd let fall in longer than he could count. "I'm not going to leave you," he told her, rough and broken and true. "You hear me? I don't quit. Whatever this is, whatever's coming, I don't quit." And he kept walking, kept holding, kept humming that old song into the dark. The week passed slow and steady, the way honey pours on a cold morning. Emma Rose settled into a rhythm, and so did Cole. He learned her cries, each one different. The sharp one meant hungry, the fussy one meant tired. The little grunt that came before a real wail meant she needed changing. He knew them all now, the way he once knew the sound of a motor about to throw a rod. He kept searching too. Every spare hour, he chased Ryan's trail. He drove past the old apartment building where Ryan used to live. The landlord shrugged and said the boy had cleared out weeks ago, owing 2 months' rent. Cole checked the shelters, the soup line by the church, the train yard where men without homes sometimes slept. Nothing. Ryan Mitchell had vanished like smoke off a candle. "He doesn't want to be found," Lily said one night, watching Cole scratch another dead end off his pad. "Everybody wants to be found," Cole said. "They just don't always believe anybody's looking." But something else was happening in Hollow Creek that week. Something Cole didn't expect. It started with Mrs. Alvarez from 2 doors down. She was a tiny woman with silver hair and a face full of soft wrinkles, and one morning she showed up at Lily's gate, holding a knitted blanket, pink and white, the yarn a little uneven where her old hands had slipped. "For the baby," she said, pushing it through the fence before Cole could say a word. "I heard. The whole street heard." Cole took it. He didn't know what to say. "Thank you, ma'am." She looked up at him, this big man in his leather vest, and she didn't cross the street. She didn't look away. She just patted his hand through the fence and walked off. After that, they kept coming. Old Mr. Pruitt, who ran the corner store, and had once called the police the first time Cole parked his bike out front, showed up with a case of formula and wouldn't take a dime for it. "You keep that little one fed," was all he said. A young mother from down the block brought a bag of clothes her own baby had outgrown. Tiny socks, a hat with ears on it, onesies soft from washing. The Hendersons brought a hot casserole, still steaming under foil, and left it on the porch with a note. "God bless you both." Cole stood in the kitchen staring at that note for a long time. "They don't even know us," he said. "They know enough," Lily answered. She was rocking Emma Rose by the window, the evening light going gold across her face. "Word gets around in a place like this. There's not much good news in Hollow Creek. You gave them some." Cole didn't feel like good news. He felt like a man patching a hole in a boat while the water still rose. But he took the casserole. He ate it. And when a rider he'd known for years dropped off a car seat, strapped it into the truck himself, and clapped Cole on the shoulder without a single question, something loosened in Cole's chest that had been clenched tight for 20 years. That night, after Emma Rose finally slept, Cole sat on the porch step with a cup of coffee gone cold in his hands. Lily came out and sat beside him. The street was quiet. A dog barked somewhere far off. The stars were coming out over the rusted rooftops. "You've been different this week," Lily said. Cole grunted. "Tired is all." "No." She shook her head. "That's not it." She was quiet a moment, choosing her words the way she always did. "You know what people are saying about you now?" "I got a good idea what people say about me." "You don't. Not anymore." She turned to face him. For years, they saw the vest and the beard and the bike. They saw a dangerous man. They crossed the street. You know that better than anybody. Cole said nothing. His jaw tightened. "But this week," Lily went on, her voice soft and sure, "I've heard it in the store, at the clinic, on the street. They don't call you that anymore, Cole." She smiled, and her eyes shone. "Now they say, that's the man who saved a child." The rain came hard that night. It started slow, a few fat drops tapping the tin roof, then built into a steady drumming that filled the whole house. Cole liked the rain. It made the world feel smaller, quieter. He sat in the front room with Emma Rose asleep against his chest, her tiny fist curled around the collar of his shirt. Lily had gone home an hour ago. The lamp threw a warm circle of light across the floor. Then he heard it. A knock, soft, uncertain. Cole went still. Nobody knocked like that. Not the neighbors, who rapped cheerful and quick. Not the riders, who pounded loud enough to wake the dead. This knock was hesitant. The knock of a man who wasn't sure he had the right to knock at all. Cole rose slow, careful not to wake the baby. He laid her down in the crib by the wall, tucked Mrs. Alvarez's pink blanket around her and crossed to the door. His hand paused on the knob. Old instincts woke up in him, the ones that had kept him alive on rough roads for 25 years. He'd learned long ago to expect trouble on a dark night. He opened the door. Ryan stood on the porch, soaked to the bone. The rain had flattened his hair against his skull. His jacket hung heavy and dripping. He looked thinner than Cole remembered, his cheeks hollow, his eyes ringed with dark circles. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week, who hadn't eaten right, who'd been running from something for a long time. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then something hardened in Cole's chest. Here he was, the man who'd left his own daughter shivering in a concrete drain. The man Cole had searched every corner of this town for, ready to demand answers. And now Cole understood exactly why he'd come. He'd come back for her. Cole stepped forward, filling the doorway, blocking the way in. His shoulders squared, his hands curled slow at his sides. "You're not taking her," Cole said. His voice came out low and rough, like gravel under a boot. "You gave her up. You don't get to change your mind on a rainy night and waltz back in like nothing happened." Ryan flinched, but he didn't back away. "I'm not," Ryan said. "You left her in a drain." Cole's voice rose. 20 years of buried anger pushed up behind it. In the cold, like she was trash. You know what that does to a person being left? You got any idea? "I know." Ryan's voice cracked. Rain ran down his face, and Cole couldn't tell what was rain and what wasn't. "I know what I did. I've thought about nothing else. Every single night I close my eyes, and I see her lying there, and I hate myself for it. You think you're angry at me? You can't be angrier than I am." Cole stared at him. The younger man was shaking now. Whether from cold or something deeper, Cole couldn't say. "Then why are you here?" Cole said. It wasn't a question. It was a warning. Ryan wiped his face with the back of his hand. He drew a breath that shuddered all the way down. "I'm not here to take her back." He looked Cole dead in the eye, and for the first time there was something steady in him, something that hadn't been there before. "I couldn't protect her before. I still can't. Not alone. That's why I'm here." Cole didn't move. "I found something," Ryan went on, the words tumbling out fast now, like a dam breaking. "About my family, the Mitchells. I found more of what Emma left behind. Papers, records, things they'd kill to keep buried." He swallowed hard. "And they know I found it. They know I've been looking. They're after me now, Cole. They're not gonna stop." The rain hammered the roof. Behind Cole, in the warm circle of lamplight, Emma Rose slept on. Ryan's voice dropped to almost nothing. "I can't do this by myself. I've got nobody but you." His jaw trembled. "I need your help." The morning came gray and washed clean. Rain still dripped from the edge of the tin roof, slow now, tapping out its last beats. Cole stood at the kitchen counter with a cup of black coffee going cold in his hand. He hadn't slept much. Neither had Ryan, who sat at the small table with his hands wrapped around a mug like it was the only warm thing left in the world. Emma Rose lay in her crib across the room, still asleep. The whole house felt like it was holding its breath. Cole set his cup down harder than he meant to. "We do this my way," he said. "You hear me? Every step. You already showed me what happens when you make choices on your own." Ryan's shoulders drew up. He stared into his coffee. "I know. You don't get to run off again. You don't get to decide what's best and disappear in the night." Cole's voice was rough, edged with something he couldn't quite bury. "She woke up 3 nights in a row crying. You know that? Crying for something she can't even name yet." Ryan flinched like he'd been struck. "You think I don't carry that?" His voice shook. "You think I set her down in that drain and just walked away clean?" He pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes. "I stood there for an hour first, in the dark, talking myself into it, telling myself she'd be safer with anybody but me." "You were wrong. I know I was wrong." Ryan stood so fast the chair scraped back. Then he caught himself, glanced at the crib, and lowered his voice to a hiss. "I know. Every minute of every day I know. But you keep saying it like I don't already say it to myself 100 times before breakfast." The two men stood there, the space between them thick. Then Emma Rose stirred. A small whimper, then a fuller cry, rising up into the quiet. Cole moved first, on instinct now, crossing to the crib. But Ryan was there too, and for a moment they both reached in at once. Their hands nearly touched over the baby. Cole pulled back. "Go on," he said gruffly. "She's yours." Ryan hesitated. His hands trembled as he lifted his daughter, cradling her against his chest like she might break. Emma Rose settled almost at once, her cries fading to soft hiccups. Ryan closed his eyes. A tear slid down his cheek and dropped onto the pink blanket. "I forgot how she smells," he whispered. "Isn't that stupid? I'm her father and I forgot." Cole watched him. Something in his chest, tight for 20 years, gave the smallest crack. "Warm the bottle?" Cole said, quieter now. "Not too hot. Test it on your wrist." Ryan nodded and followed him to the stove. They moved around each other, slow, careful, two big men in a small kitchen learning a strange new dance. Cole showed him how to hold the bottle, how to angle it so she wouldn't gulp air. Ryan listened like every word was gold. They sat together at the table then, Ryan feeding her, Cole watching. "I had a brother," Cole said. The words surprised him coming out. He hadn't planned them. "Younger than me, everybody wrote him off, said he was trouble, said he was no good, and after a while he started believing it too." He turned his cup slow on the table. "By the time I understood he needed me, it was too late. He was gone. And I've spent every day since wondering if I'd said one more word, one more time, whether he'd still be here." Ryan went still, the bottle held forgotten in his hand. "That's why I couldn't leave her in that drain," Cole said, "because nobody came for him." Ryan's eyes filled. "Emma died thinking she failed too," he said softly. "She found the truth about them, and it cost her everything, and I let them scare me into running." He looked down at his daughter. "I don't want to run anymore." Cole reached across the table. He laid his rough hand over Ryan's. "Then we don't," Cole said. "We find every last piece of what Emma left behind. We drag it into the light, and we make them answer for all of it." Ryan nodded, his throat working. "Together," he whispered. "Together," Cole said. The days that followed moved fast. Lily came by the little house every evening after her shift, still wearing her scrubs, a folder tucked under her arm. She had a way of making the kitchen table feel less like a war room and more like a place where three people worked toward something good. She'd hold Emma Rose while Cole and Ryan spread papers across every open space, and somehow the baby's soft weight kept them all steady when the anger threatened to boil over. "Start with what you know," Lily said the first night. "What did Emma tell you before she died?" Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. "Not much. She was scared to say too much. She kept saying the numbers didn't add up, said the family was spending money they shouldn't have and hiding where it came from." He paused. "She worked in the office, filing mostly, but she saw things." They started there. Cole knew people. That was the thing folks never understood about him. Behind the leather and the beard was a man who'd spent 20 years earning the trust of people the world threw away. And those people remembered. He rode out to the old freight yard on the edge of town and came back with a name. A trucker named Bill Hodge, who used to haul loads for the Mitchell Company and quit Sudden 2 years back. They found Bill in a trailer out past the county line, a thin man with nervous hands and a cough that rattled deep in his chest. "I don't want no trouble," Bill said, standing in his doorway. "Neither do we," Cole said quietly. "We want the truth, that's all." Bill looked at Cole a long moment. Then his eyes dropped to the baby carrier in Ryan's arms, Emma Rose sleeping inside it. Something in the old trucker's face softened. "Come in," he said. Inside, over weak coffee, Bill told them what he'd carried. Drums, big steel drums sealed tight, loaded at night at the back of the Mitchell processing plant. He was told they were fertilizer runoff, harmless. "But fertilizer don't burn your eyes," Bill said. Don't make your hands blister when a little splashes out. I dumped them where they told me, out by the creek beds north of town. Middle of the night, no lights. He coughed hard into a rag. Then I saw the fish, all of them, floating belly up the next spring. That's when I quit. Ryan leaned forward. Would you say that? In front of people? Bill hesitated. His hands shook around his cup. I've been scared a long time, he whispered. Cole reached into his vest and set a folded photograph on the table. It was Emma Rose, taken the week before, her tiny fist curled around Ryan's finger. So was somebody else, Cole said. Her mama? She got scared too, and she died before she could finish what she started. This baby's the only piece of that left. He tapped the photo. You want to be scared the rest of your life, Bill? Or you want to be the man who helped make it right? Bill stared at the picture for a long time. Then he stood, crossed to a rusted footlocker in the corner, and dug beneath old clothes until he pulled out a crumpled shipping manifest. Dates, load numbers, signatures. Kept this, he said, in case they ever came for me. Lily took it with careful hands, her nurse's eyes scanning fast. These match the dates Emma flagged, she breathed. Look, the shipments line up with the dead zones along the creek. Back at the house that night, they laid it all out together. Bill's manifest. Emma's notes, recovered from a hidden drive Ryan had tucked in the lining of his old jacket. Water testing reports Lily had quietly pulled from a friend at the county lab, showing chemical levels 20 times higher than safe near the North Creek beds. The pieces fit like they were made to. Cole stood over the table, his hands flat on the wood, and stared down at the evidence spread before him. Emma hadn't imagined a thing. She'd found it all: the illegal dumping, the poisoned water, the Mitchell family's name signed right on the loads. She was right, Ryan whispered, his voice breaking. The whole time, she was right. Word spread the way it always did in Hollow Creek. Slow at first, then all at once. Cole didn't shout it from the rooftops. That wasn't his way. He started small, the same way he'd built everything in his life. One person at a time, one handshake, one quiet conversation in a garage or a kitchen or the back booth of the diner on Main Street. He went first to Pete Sorensen, who ran the hardware store and had known Cole's brother back when they were boys. Pete had crossed the street more than once when he saw Cole coming. But when Cole laid the manifest on the counter and told him about the drums and the dead fish and the poisoned water, Pete's jaw tightened. My granddaughter's got asthma, Pete said quietly. Doctor never could say why. We live off the North Road. He looked up, and his eyes were hard now, but not at Cole. What do you need from me? That was how it started. By the end of the week, Cole's little house couldn't hold all the people who came. They stood in the yard, on the porch, leaned against pickup trucks parked crooked along the gravel drive. Folks Cole had known for years, and folks who'd never said a word to him. The waitress from the diner. The old veterans he'd quietly helped over the years, now standing tall to help him back. Even Marge Thompson, who ran the church food pantry and had once told her book club that Cole Harrison was trouble on two wheels. She came anyway. She brought a casserole. Lily stood on the porch step with Emma Rose bundled against her chest, and Ryan stood beside Cole, nervous, his hands stuffed in his pockets. He kept glancing at the crowd like he expected them to turn and leave any moment. They didn't. I ain't gonna lie to you, Cole said, his rough voice carrying across the quiet yard. This is dangerous. The Mitchells got money. They got lawyers. They got friends in places we can't reach. Standing with us might cost you something. Nobody moved. But that water's been poisoning this town for years, Cole went on. Emma Mitchell figured it out. She was somebody's mama. He glanced back at the baby sleeping in Lily's arms. And they took her from her little girl to keep it quiet. A murmur ran through the crowd. Anger. But something warmer, too. Something Cole hadn't felt directed at himself in a very long time. Belonging. Old Sam Whitaker stepped forward, leaning on his cane. He'd fought in a war before Cole was born, and folks respected him the way they respected the sunrise. "I lost my wife to cancer 3 years back," Sam said, his voice trembling. "We lived near that creek 40 years. I always wondered." He straightened as much as his old back would allow. "I'm too old to be scared of rich men, Cole. I'm in." "I'm in," Pete said. "Me too," said the waitress. One by one they spoke, voices layering over each other until the whole yard hummed with them. Farmers, shop owners, mothers holding their own children close. The very people who had once locked their doors when they heard his motorcycle now stood in his yard, ready to fight beside him. Ryan turned to Cole, his eyes wet. "They came," he whispered, like he couldn't believe it. "For us. They actually came." Cole didn't answer right away. His throat had gone tight, and his eyes stung in a way he wasn't used to. He looked out over all those faces. People who had judged him. People he'd assumed would never see past the leather and the ink. He'd spent his whole life believing he was alone. That everyone left. That a man like him fought his battles by himself because that was all he deserved. But here they were. Lily stepped close beside him. Emma Rose stirred, and one tiny hand reached out from the blanket, curling in the air like she was reaching for all of them at once. "You see that?" Lily said softly. "You're not carrying this by yourself anymore, Cole." Cole swallowed hard. He looked at the crowd, at Ryan, at the baby. For the first time in more years than he could count, he believed her. The days that followed settled into something Cole never expected. A rhythm, a routine. It started before sunrise, the way most things did in his life. But now, instead of the growl of his motorcycle waking the town, it was the thin, sharp cry of a hungry baby waking him. The first morning, Cole nearly panicked. He stood over the little crib they'd set up in his spare room, staring down at Emma Rose like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Her face was scrunched and red. Her tiny fists waved in the air. "Okay," he muttered, his big hands hovering. "Okay, little one, I got you." He lifted her the way Lily had shown him, one hand behind her head, one under her bottom. She felt impossibly small against his chest, so light he was afraid he might break her just by holding her wrong. But she quieted. Right there against the leather-worn muscle of his arm, she went still and warm, and Cole felt something crack open inside him. Ryan shuffled in from the couch, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He'd been staying there since the night everyone gathered in the yard. He watched Cole holding his daughter, and a small, tired smile crossed his face. "You're a natural," Ryan said. "I'm a mess," Cole shot back. But he didn't hand her over. That was how the week went. Lily came by after her shifts at the clinic, teaching them both the small things that felt enormous. How to test the bottle on your wrist so the milk wasn't too hot. How to burp her without dropping her. How to swaddle her tight so she felt safe, like she was still being held even when she was set down. Cole learned to change a diaper. It took him 3 tries and a lot of quiet cursing under his breath, and Ryan laughed harder than he had in months. "You take down grown men twice your size," Ryan said, wiping his eyes, "and a diaper's got you beat." "This ain't a fair fight," Cole grumbled, but he was grinning too. Something shifted in Ryan during those days. Cole noticed it slow, the way you notice a season changing. At first, the young man held his daughter like he was afraid she'd be taken away again. His shoulders stayed hunched. His eyes kept darting to the door. But each day, he stood a little taller. Each night, he held her a little longer. Cole watched him one evening from the kitchen doorway. Ryan sat in the old rocking chair by the window, Emma Rose tucked in the crook of his arm. The last light of the day painted them both gold. Ryan was singing something low, off-key, some song Cole didn't know. His voice cracked on the high notes. Emma Rose stared up at him like he'd hung the moon. "You're good with her," Cole said quietly. Ryan looked up, startled, then embarrassed. "I don't know what I'm doing half the time." "Nobody does." Cole crossed the room and lowered himself into the chair beside them. His knees popped. "But she don't need you to be perfect. She just needs you to stay." Ryan looked down at his daughter. His jaw worked, like he was fighting to hold something back. Then his eyes filled. "I left her in that drain," he whispered. "I told myself it was for her, that she'd be better off. But the truth is I was scared. I was so scared I couldn't do this." "You came back," Cole said. "That's what matters." Ryan pulled Emma Rose a little closer. He pressed his lips to the soft fuzz of her hair, and when he spoke again, his voice was steady in a way Cole had never heard from him before. "I'm never leaving you again," Ryan said to her, so soft it was almost a prayer. "You hear me, Emma Rose? Never. I don't care what they do to me. I don't care what it costs. I'm your daddy, and I'm staying. Forever." The baby cooed and grabbed his finger. Cole sat back in his chair and watched them. The young father, the tiny girl, the warm little house that had been so empty for so many years. And he realized, with a quiet ache that felt almost like joy, that somewhere along the way he had stopped being alone. He had found a family, one he never thought possible. The kitchen table had become a war room. Papers covered every inch of it. Bank statements, company reports, photographs Lily had printed at the clinic when nobody was looking. She'd spent 3 nights sorting through it all, her nurse's mind good at finding patterns, good at seeing what didn't belong. "This is it," she said, tapping a stack of pages. "The dumping records. The dates line up with the sick calls we got at the clinic. Fever, rashes, breathing trouble, all from families who lived near the old canal." Cole leaned over her shoulder. He wasn't much for reading fine print, but he understood what she was pointing at. Numbers, lies dressed up in fancy words, the Mitchell family poisoning the same town they smiled at in newspaper photos. "And Emma found all this?" he asked. Lily nodded slowly. She was smart, braver than anyone gave her credit for. She glanced toward the living room, where Ryan sat with his daughter. "She started this fight. We're just finishing it." Ryan came in a moment later, Emma Rose asleep against his chest. He set her gently in the little bassinet by the wall, then pulled out a chair. His hands were shaking, but his eyes were clear. "I've been practicing what I'll say," he told them. "To the reporters, to the town, everything my family did to Emma, everything they threatened me with." He swallowed hard. "I want people to hear it from me, not from a lawyer, not from a piece of paper, from her father." Cole studied the young man. A week ago, Ryan couldn't look anyone in the eye. Now he sat straight, jaw set, ready to stand in front of the whole town and speak the truth. "You sure you're ready for that?" Cole asked. "Once you say it out loud, there's no taking it back. Victor Mitchell don't forgive. He'll come at you with everything he's got." "Let him," Ryan said. "I'm done being scared." Cole felt something warm move through his chest. Pride. He wasn't sure he'd earned the right to feel it, but he felt it all the same. "All right," he said. "Then we do this right. Lily, you keep the evidence locked up tight. Nobody touches it but us. Ryan, you say your piece exactly like you practiced. And me? He cracked his knuckles. I make sure nobody lays a hand on either of you. He'd already made calls. Old friends, brothers from the club who owed him favors and some who didn't but came anyway. Big men on big bikes who understood one simple thing. When Cole asked you to stand watch over a baby, you stood watch. For the next 2 days, the little house never sat empty. Someone was always parked outside, always awake, always watching the road for headlights that didn't belong. Cole barely slept. He walked the perimeter of his property in the dark, listening. He checked the locks twice, then a third time. Every creak of the old house put him on edge. But nothing came. The Mitchells stayed quiet, and that quiet worried Cole more than any threat. Still, the days passed. The evidence sat safe in a locked box under Lily's watch. Ryan's testimony grew stronger every time he spoke it. And piece by piece, the case against Victor Mitchell came together like a machine Cole was finally learning to build. On the third night, Lily gathered the last of the documents and slid them into the folder. She looked up, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled a real smile. "That's everything," she said softly. "We have it, all of it. Tomorrow we take it to the reporters and the county office, and then it's over." Ryan let out a breath that seemed to carry a year of fear with it. He reached across the table and squeezed Lily's hand, then Cole's shoulder. Nobody said anything. They didn't have to. Later, when the others had gone to rest, Cole sat alone in the rocking chair by the window with Emma Rose in his arms. The house was quiet. Outside, one of his brothers leaned against a motorcycle, keeping watch under the stars. Cole looked down at the sleeping baby. Her little chest rose and fell. Her fingers curled around the edge of her blanket. "We did it, little one," he whispered. "Almost over now. Just one more day." He rocked her slow, back and forth. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Cole Harrison let himself believe that everything was going to be okay. Cole woke before the sun. Old habits, old fears. His eyes opened in the gray light, and something felt wrong before his mind even caught up. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when a door has been left open too long. He rose from the couch where he'd finally let himself drift off. His boots were still on. He always slept ready. The back door stood ajar. Cole's stomach dropped like a stone down a well. He crossed the kitchen in 3 long steps. The lock was busted, the wood splintered clean around the frame. Cold morning air spilled through the gap. "No," he breathed. "No, no, no." He ran to the spare room where Lily had kept the locked box. The door hung open, drawers pulled out, papers scattered across the floor like dead leaves, and the box itself was gone. Everything they'd gathered, every record, every photograph, every piece of truth Emma had died to protect. Gone. Cole stood there in the wreckage, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. He'd walked the property every night. He'd checked the locks 3 times. He'd sat in that rocking chair believing, for once, that things would turn out right. And someone had walked right in and taken it all. Cole? Lily appeared in the doorway, her hair still messed from sleep. Her eyes went wide as she took in the room. Oh, God. The evidence. "It's gone," Cole said. His voice came out flat and hollow. "All of it." Before either of them could speak again, a fist hammered on the front door. Hard. Official. Then a voice, loud and cold. "This is the county sheriff. Open up." Cole's whole body went tight. He looked at Lily. Something in her face had already broken. He opened the door. 2 deputies stood on the porch, hands near their belts. Behind them, red and blue lights washed silent over the yard. And behind the cars, standing calm as a man watching the weather, was Victor Mitchell in a pressed gray suit. "Cole Harrison?" the lead deputy said. "What's this about?" "We have a report of destroyed evidence in an active investigation. And we've got a warrant." The deputy's eyes flicked past Cole into the house. "Where's Ryan Mitchell?" "I'm here." Ryan stepped forward from the hallway. Emma Rose held tight against his chest. His face was pale, confused. He looked from the deputies to Cole to Victor standing out in the yard. "Ryan Mitchell, you're under arrest," the deputy said, "for destroying county records and tampering with an investigation." "What?" Ryan's voice cracked. "No, I didn't. I would never. That's a lie." "We found shredded documents at the site of the old mechanic shop this morning. Your prints are all over them, son." "That's impossible!" Ryan's arms tightened around his daughter. "They set me up. It's them. It's my family. Ask them. Ask Victor. He did this." Out in the yard, Victor Mitchell shook his head slowly, sadly, like a man forced to watch a tragedy he'd tried so hard to prevent. "Poor boy," Victor said just loud enough. "He's not well. He's been unstable ever since Emma passed, living with a known criminal, dragging an innocent baby into all this." He looked directly at Cole. "I warned the county. I truly did." Cole took one step forward, and both deputies' hands snapped to their belts. "Don't," the lead deputy said. "Sir, we've got concerns about this environment, about the baby's safety. There's a family court order." A woman came up the walk then, holding a clipboard, her face kind but firm. "Child Services." She reached out gently for Emma Rose. "No," Ryan said, backing away. "Please, she's my daughter. Please don't." "Sir, this is temporary, I promise you, until things get sorted out." Ryan looked at Cole, drowning, begging without words for the big man to fix this the way he fixed everything. But Cole couldn't. Not this. His hands, so strong, so useful, hung empty at his sides. They cuffed Ryan. They took the baby. Emma Rose began to cry, a thin, high wail that cut straight through Cole's chest. He stood on the porch and watched the cars pull away. Then he walked back inside, down the hall, and stopped at the door of the little nursery. The empty bassinet, the tiny folded blanket, the stuffed animal on the pillow. Cole sank to his knees. "I promised I'd protect her," he whispered to the empty room. "I promised." The days ran together after that. Cole stopped counting them. The sun rose, the sun fell. He barely noticed. He sat in the dark house with the curtains drawn, and he let the quiet swallow him whole. The nursery door stayed shut. He couldn't look at it. His motorcycle sat cold in the yard, gathering dust and dew. He hadn't touched it. The thought of riding, of feeling the wind and the road and the life in the engine felt like something that belonged to another man. A man who still believed he could do some good in the world. The phone rang. He let it ring. Lily's number. Over and over. He watched it light up on the table and go dark again. She left messages. He didn't listen to them. He knew what she'd say. She'd tell him it wasn't over. She'd tell him to get up, to keep fighting, to believe. And he couldn't stand to hear it, because he'd heard those words before, a long time ago, and they'd been lies then, too. He thought about his brother. He always did when things got dark like this. His little brother, hurting and scared, reaching out for help. And Cole, so sure he had time, so sure he could fix it later. So sure. He'd been wrong then. He'd been wrong now. That was the truth he kept circling back to, like a dog worrying a wound. Every single time, every person he ever let close, he failed. Ryan trusted him. That baby needed him. And what had he done? He'd fallen asleep in a rocking chair while someone crept through the dark and stole everything. "You bring trouble," he said to the empty room. His voice was rough from days of silence. "That's all you ever bring." He believed it. He let himself sink into it like cold water. On the 5th day, the front door opened without a knock. Lily stood there, a key in her hand. He'd forgotten he'd given her one. She looked at him sitting in the dark, unshaven, hollow-eyed, a man half buried in his own grief. "You didn't answer," she said. "Go home, Lily." She didn't go home. She crossed the room and yanked the curtains open. Gray light poured in, and Cole winced away from it like it hurt. "Look at you," she said. Her voice wasn't gentle now. It was sharp. It was angry. "Sitting here in the dark, feeling sorry for yourself, while Ryan sits in a cell and that baby cries in a stranger's arms. Don't." Cole stood up fast, and his chair scraped back hard. "Don't you dare. I did everything. I checked the locks. I stayed up. I watched. And they still took her. I couldn't stop them. So you quit. I lost. You lost a round." Lily stepped closer, her eyes bright and fierce. "You think that's what protecting someone means? Never losing? Winning every single time?" She shook her head. "That's not it, Cole. That's not it at all." "Then what is it?" he shouted. The word cracked out of him raw. "You tell me, because I've been trying my whole life and everyone I care about ends up gone. My brother, Emma Rose, every time. What's the point?" Lily didn't flinch. She stood right there in front of him, small and steady, and she looked up into his broken face. "You think protecting someone means never losing," she said quietly. "It doesn't. It means standing back up every time you get knocked down. It means fighting even when you're scared, even when you're tired, even when you've already failed once." Her voice softened, but it didn't lose its edge. "That baby doesn't need a man who never falls. She needs a man who gets up. Ryan needs that. And I think, somewhere under all this, you need it too." Cole stood there, breathing hard, her words landing somewhere deep in his chest where he'd shut everything away. Standing back up. He thought of Emma Rose's tiny hand wrapped around his finger. He thought of Ryan's face in the doorway, drowning, trusting him. He hadn't failed yet. Not really. Not until he stopped. Slowly, Cole straightened. Something hard and old lifted off his shoulders. "Okay," he said. His voice was steady now. "Okay, I'm getting up." The clinic was quiet the next morning. Lily got there before the doors opened, before the other nurses arrived, before the phones started ringing and the waiting room filled up with coughs and worried faces. She wanted the silence. She needed it. She flipped on a single lamp in the records room and let the rest of the building stay dark. Rows of gray filing cabinets stood around her like soldiers waiting for orders. Somewhere in all this paper was Emma Mitchell, a young woman who had come here, month after month, carrying a baby and a secret. Lily pulled the drawer marked Ma'am. Her fingers walked across the tabs until she found it. Mitchell, Emma. She lifted the folder out and set it on the desk under the lamp. She had looked at it before. They all had, nothing but ordinary things: blood pressure numbers, weight charts, the steady growing of a healthy baby, notes in a doctor's tired handwriting. But Lily had learned something in her years of nursing. People hide their truest things in the places nobody bothers to look. She read every page, slowly, line by line, and then she saw it. On the back of an ultrasound report, in the corner, someone had written a string of numbers and letters in blue ink. It didn't match the doctor's handwriting. It was smaller, neater, a woman's careful hand. Lily's heart began to knock against her ribs. She turned the page over. Then the next. On the back of another form, more numbers, and on a third, a single word. Backup. Lily sat very still. Her breath came shallow and quick. Emma hadn't just discovered the truth about her family. She had protected it. She had hidden pieces of it here, in the one place the Mitchells would never think to search. A medical file for a baby that wasn't even born yet. Lily copied the numbers onto a fresh sheet of paper, her hand shaking. She recognized what they were now. File codes. The kind used to store things on a cloud account, somewhere far away from any house that could be broken into. Somewhere no thief could steal. The evidence hadn't all been in Cole's house. Emma had made copies. Lily pressed her hand to her mouth. For a long moment, she couldn't move. She just stared at that little word in blue ink, and she thought about the young woman who wrote it. Emma had been so scared. She must have known how dangerous her own family was. And still she had fought. Still she had found a way to leave a light burning in the dark, in case the worst happened. The worst had happened. But the light was still there. Lily's hands moved fast now. She pulled her phone out and logged into the account using the codes. It asked for a password. She tried Emma Rose's birthday. Nothing. She tried the baby's name. Nothing. She sat back, thinking. What would Emma choose? Something no one could guess. Something that meant everything to her. Lily typed one more word. A name she'd heard Ryan say once, soft and broken when he thought no one was listening. The screen opened. Folders spilled across it. Documents, photographs, recordings, financial records with the Mitchell name stamped all over them. Lily's eyes filled. It was all here. Everything Emma had died protecting. And then she saw the message. It sat at the top, dated the week before Emma passed. A note Emma had written and set to send if she ever stopped logging in. A voice reaching out from beyond, trusting that someone, someday, would find it. Lily read it twice. I made copies, it said. I couldn't trust just one place. If they find one, they can't find all of them. I sent the truth to people I hoped were good. I don't know if they'll be brave enough. Fear makes cowards of good people. But I have to believe someone will stand up when it matters most. Below the message was a short list of names. Lily's eyes moved down it. A lawyer, a reporter, and then a third name, one she knew, one that made her breath catch in her throat. Thomas Reed, Ryan's old boss at the mechanic shop. Emma had sent him the evidence too, and he had sat on it. For months he had held the truth in his hands, too afraid to say a single word. The mechanic shop sat at the edge of town, where the road turned to gravel and the streetlights gave up. Reed's Auto. The sign hung crooked. Half the letters had faded. A single bulb burned inside, throwing a weak yellow glow across the oil-stained floor. Cole killed the engine of his motorcycle. The quiet rushed in around them. Ryan climbed out of Lily's little car and stood there, staring at the building like it might bite him. I worked here 3 years, Ryan said softly. Thought Thomas was the closest thing I had to family. Turns out he knew. This whole time, he knew. Then let's find out why he stayed quiet, Cole said. They walked in together. Thomas Reed was hunched over a workbench in the back, a rag in his hands. He was a small man, thin, with gray stubble and eyes that had seen too much worry. When he looked up and saw them, his face went pale as milk. Ryan, he whispered. Then his gaze moved to Cole, and his throat worked. I don't want any trouble. Please, I got nothing to say. You've got everything to say, Lily said gently, stepping forward. She held up her phone. Emma sent you the truth, Thomas. Months ago. We know. The rag slipped from his hands and dropped to the floor. Thomas backed up until he hit the bench. His whole body seemed to shrink. You don't understand what they'll do, he said. His voice shook. The Mitchells, They own the police. They own the judges. A man like me, I say one word, and I lose everything. This shop. My name. Maybe more than that. You think I don't understand losing everything? Ryan's voice cracked. He stepped close. I lost my job, my home, Emma. I gave up my own daughter because I thought it was the only way to keep her breathing. Don't you talk to me about being scared, Thomas. I know scared. Thomas couldn't look at him. Cole hadn't moved. He stood in the doorway, big and still, his shadow stretching long across the floor. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough. I found that baby in a drain, Cole said. Cold, alone. Crying so soft I almost missed it. And you know what I thought when I picked her up? I thought about my little brother. The room went quiet. Even Ryan turned to look at him. He needed help once, Cole went on. And the whole world looked at him and decided he wasn't worth the trouble. People crossed the street. People looked away. And he died. Alone. Because everybody was too scared or too busy to stand up for one person who couldn't stand up for himself. Cole took a slow step forward. I spent 30 years letting people think I was a monster. Letting them cross the street, it was easier. But that little girl doesn't care what I look like. She just needs somebody to be brave for her. He looked Thomas dead in the eye. You've been carrying the truth for months. It's heavy, isn't it? Heavier than any wrench. Thomas's eyes filled. His hands were trembling now. She trusted you, Lily said softly. Out of everyone, Emma trusted you with the truth. She wrote that she hoped someone would be brave enough. She believed in you, Thomas. The old mechanic pressed a hand over his face. His shoulders began to shake. When he lowered his hand, tears ran down through the gray stubble. She was a good kid, he whispered. Emma, she used to bring me coffee. Never took no for an answer. He laughed, a broken little sound. She left it with me because she said I was the only honest man she knew, and I've spent every day since hating myself for proving her wrong. He looked at Ryan then. Really looked. That baby, Thomas said. Emma Rose. She got her mama's eyes. Ryan's chin trembled. Yeah, he managed. She does. Thomas nodded slowly. Something changed in him. The fear was still there. But behind it, something stronger began to rise. He turned and walked to the back of the shop. He pulled a rusted panel off the wall, reached into the gap behind it, and drew out a small metal box wrapped in an oil rag. It's all here, Thomas said, holding it out. Recordings, papers, everything she gave me. His voice steadied. I'll testify. Whatever it takes. I'm done being a coward. The morning of the hearing came with a gray sky and a cold wind. The town hall of Hollow Creek stood at the center of Main Street, an old brick building with wide steps and tall windows. It had not seen a crowd like this in years. People came from every corner of town. They came in trucks and on foot. Some came leaning on canes. Some came pushing strollers. Cole arrived first, the low rumble of his motorcycle echoing off the empty storefronts. He parked at the curb and cut the engine. For a moment he just sat there, gripping the handlebars, his knuckles white beneath his gloves. Behind him, Lily's little car pulled up. Ryan stepped out with Emma Rose bundled against his chest, her tiny face peeking out from a soft blanket. Lily followed, her arm looped through Thomas Reed's. The old mechanic looked pale but steady. He carried the metal box under his arm like it weighed 100 pounds. You ready? Cole asked him. Thomas swallowed hard. No, he said, but I'm doing it anyway. Cole almost smiled. That's the only kind of ready that counts. They climbed the steps together. Inside, the hall was already full. Rows of wooden chairs stretched from the back doors to the front, where a long table sat beneath the town seal. Whispers moved through the crowd like wind through tall grass. Some folks pointed at Cole, some folks looked away, the old habit still strong. But something was different now. More than a few faces met his eyes. More than a few nodded. The elderly woman who ran the corner bakery reached out and touched Cole's sleeve as he passed. "God bless you," she whispered. "For that baby." Cole's throat tightened. He nodded back. At the front of the room sat the Mitchells. Victor Mitchell wore a suit that probably cost more than the whole shop where Thomas worked. His silver hair was combed back neat. His hands were folded on the table, calm as a man ordering lunch. Beside him sat Richard, thinner and paler, his eyes darting around the room like a rabbit hunting for a hole to run into. Victor looked at Cole, and Ryan and the baby, and he smiled. It was a smile with no warmth in it at all. The town clerk called the hearing to order. One by one, the truth came out. Lily stood and spoke about the hidden medical records. She played the recording Emma had made before she died, her voice filling the silent hall, brave and clear even in death. Thomas rose on shaking legs and set the metal box on the table. He opened it. He showed the papers, the financial records, the proof of the dumping, the fraud, the lies. The crowd gasped. People murmured. A reporter in the back scribbled furiously in a notebook. Victor's smile finally cracked. He stood, buttoning his jacket, and turned to face the room with the ease of a man used to getting his way. "This is a circus," he said smoothly. "Manufactured evidence, wild stories." He waved a hand toward the front. "And look who they brought to accuse me. A confused old grease monkey. A boy who left his own child in a ditch." Then his cold eyes landed on Cole. "And him. A biker. A criminal. Look at him. Leather and tattoos and a beard down to his chest. This is the man you're going to believe over me?" He laughed, low and cruel. A few people shifted in their seats. "You're nothing," Victor said, staring straight at Cole. "You're just a biker. That's all you'll ever be." The room went still. Cole rose from his chair. He was big and slow and quiet, and every eye in the hall turned to him. He walked to the front. He did not hurry. He stopped and faced Victor, and he was not angry. He was calm, steady as stone. "You're right," Cole said. "I am a biker." He let the words settle. "But I'm also the man who found Emma Rose in a drain, cold, alone, left to die because you were scared of what a baby's eyes might one day tell the world." His voice grew stronger. "I picked her up, I held her, and I decided right then that nobody was going to hurt her again. Not the world, not the cold, not you." He looked around the room, at all the faces watching him. "You can call me whatever you want," Cole said. "Biker, criminal, monster. I've heard it all my whole life, but I know exactly who I am now." His eyes returned to Victor, and they did not waver. "I'm the man who saved that little girl, and I am not afraid of you." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then, from the back of the room, someone began to clap. It was the elderly woman from the bakery. Slow at first. Then another pair of hands joined her. Then another. The sound grew, spreading through the hall like a wave rolling to shore. Soon the whole room was on its feet. Victor's face went red. He turned to the town clerk, jabbing a finger toward the front table. "This is nonsense," he snapped. "You cannot allow this. These papers could be fakes. This whole thing is a stunt." But the clerk was already leaning over the metal box, studying the documents with careful eyes. A man in a dark suit stood beside her. He had arrived quietly that morning and taken a seat near the front. Now he held up a badge. "State investigator," he said. His voice was flat and certain. "We've been looking into the Mitchell holdings for some time. These records match what we already suspected. He picked up one of the papers and read it slowly. Illegal dumping, falsified reports, and now this recording. He looked at Victor. "Mr. Mitchell, I think you should sit down." Victor did not sit down. He stayed standing, his jaw tight, his eyes flicking from face to face like he was searching for a friend and finding none. Beside him, Richard had gone very still. His hands were shaking on the table. "Victor," Richard whispered. "It's over." "Shut up," Victor hissed. But Richard did not shut up. He rose slowly to his feet, and when he spoke, his voice cracked. "I can't do this anymore," he said. He looked at the crowd. He looked at Ryan, holding the baby against his chest. "I helped him. I pushed Ryan to give up his little girl. I told him lies. I told him he'd lose everything if he fought us." Tears filled his eyes. "Emma found out what we were doing. She was going to tell the world, and she died before she could." His voice broke completely. "I don't know if that was an accident. God help me, I don't know." The room went cold and quiet again. The investigator nodded to two officers standing near the door. They stepped forward. Victor Mitchell straightened his jacket one last time, as if dignity were something he could button up and carry with him. But his hands trembled. And when the officers reached him, he did not fight. He had no more smiles left, no more cruel words. He was just a man, small and gray, being led out of a room that had finally seen the truth of him. Richard followed, his head bowed low. The doors closed behind them. For a moment, the hall simply breathed. Then Ryan stepped forward. He walked to the front of the room with Emma Rose in his arms, and he stood beside Cole. His eyes were wet, but his back was straight. The town clerk looked at him kindly. "Ryan Mitchell," she said, "the charges against you were built on lies, framing you for destroying evidence, painting you as unfit." She shook her head. "None of it holds. In light of everything we've heard today, this hearing recommends the immediate return of custody proceedings in your favor." Ryan's knees nearly buckled. "Your name is cleared, son," the clerk said softly. "You can start fighting to bring your daughter home for good." A sound came out of Ryan then, half a laugh, half a sob. He pressed his lips to the top of Emma Rose's head. Her tiny hand had worked free of the blanket, and it curled around his finger, holding tight the way babies do, like the whole world was right there in one man's hand. "You hear that?" Ryan whispered to her. "You're coming home. I'm never letting go again." Lily wiped her eyes and laughed and cried all at once. Thomas Reed sat down heavily in his chair, the weight of years of fear finally lifting from his shoulders. And Cole stood there, watching them, this strange little family he had never planned on. He felt something crack open in his chest. Something warm. Something that had been locked away for a very long time. He put a heavy hand on Ryan's shoulder. "Told you," Cole said, his voice rough. "Nobody's hurting her again." The morning came soft and gray over Hollow Creek. The clinic doors opened just after 9. Cole stood off to the side, near the window, his big arms folded across his chest. He wasn't good at waiting, never had been. But this waiting felt different. This waiting had hope in it. Lily stood beside him, holding a folder against her chest. She had barely slept. None of them had. The past few days had been a blur of paperwork and phone calls and men in suits asking careful questions. But now, finally, it was done. The county had signed the papers that morning. Emma Rose was coming home. A social worker carried her out in a fresh yellow blanket. The baby's face was round and pink, her little mouth working like she was chewing on a dream. Cole watched Ryan the moment he saw her. The young man froze. His whole body went still, like he was afraid to move too fast and wake himself from something good. "Go on," the social worker said gently. "She's yours." Ryan stepped forward. His hands shook as he reached out. And then Emma Rose was in his arms, tucked against his chest, and Ryan let out a breath that seemed to come from somewhere deep down, somewhere that had been holding tight for a long, long time. "Hey," he whispered. "Hey, baby girl, it's me. It's your daddy." Emma Rose blinked up at him. Her tiny fist opened and closed, and then she made a small sound, a soft coo, and Ryan's face crumpled. He bent his head over her and cried. Not the kind of crying that comes from breaking, the kind that comes from mending. "I'm sorry," Ryan said, his voice thick. "I'm so sorry I ever set you down. I'm never doing that again. You hear me? Never." He pressed his lips to her forehead. "You're home now. We're home." Lily turned away, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. She laughed, that watery kind of laugh, and reached over to squeeze Cole's arm. But Cole couldn't speak. He stood there, watching the young father hold his daughter, and something old and heavy pressed down on his chest. He thought of his brother. He thought of all the years he'd spent believing that everyone he loved would slip away, that his hands were too rough to hold anything gentle. He thought of the drain that cold morning, the tiny cry that had cut through the dark and changed the whole shape of his life. He hadn't failed this time. For once, he hadn't failed. His eyes stung. He blinked hard and looked down at his boots, embarrassed, but there was no hiding it. Not from himself. Not anymore. After a while, when the crying had settled into quiet, Ryan crossed the room. He stopped in front of Cole, cradling Emma Rose in one arm. His eyes were red, but there was something steady in them now, something that hadn't been there before. "Cole," he said. Cole cleared his throat. "You got everything you need? Diapers, that formula stuff, the little—" "Cole," Ryan said again, softer this time. Cole stopped. Ryan swallowed hard. "You saved her," he said. "You found her in that drain when nobody else would have even looked twice. You could have kept riding. You could have called somebody and washed your hands of the whole thing." His voice trembled. "But you didn't. You stayed. You fought for her when I couldn't. You fought for me." He shook his head slowly, tears sliding down his face again. "You didn't just save my daughter, Cole. You saved my life. I don't know where I'd be right now if you hadn't stopped me that morning. I don't want to know." Cole stood there. This big, rough man with the beard and the leather and the tattoos, and for a long moment he couldn't find any words at all. Then he reached out and laid his heavy hand on the back of Ryan's neck, the way a father might, the way his own father never had. "You got it wrong, son," Cole said, his voice rough and low. "I didn't save you." He looked down at Emma Rose, then back at Ryan. "We saved each other." The old factory on the edge of town had stood empty for as long as anyone could remember. Broken windows, rusted doors, weeds pushing up through the cracks in the parking lot. For years it had been a place folks drove past without looking, a gray reminder of everything Hollow Creek had lost. Now it was changing. Cole stood on a wooden ladder, a paintbrush in his hand, wiping sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. The morning sun poured down warm and gold across the front of the building. Below him, a dozen people worked side by side, sanding, hammering, painting. The sound of it filled the air like music. "A little higher on that beam," Cole called down. Ryan looked up from where he knelt, screwing a hinge onto a fresh new door. Emma Rose sat nearby in a little bouncer chair, kicking her chubby legs and watching everything with wide, curious eyes. She was bigger now, rounder. Her hair had come in soft and dark, and she had a laugh that could stop a grown man mid-sentence. "You sure you don't want me up there?" Ryan asked, grinning. "You're not exactly a young man, old-timer." Cole snorted. "I've got a few good years left in me, boy. Keep talking and I'll let you find out." Lily laughed from the doorway. She carried a tray of lemonade, the ice clinking in the glasses. "You two are worse than the kids," she said, setting the tray down on an overturned crate. The past few months had been the hardest work of Cole's life. And the best. After the truth came out, after Thomas Reed found his courage, and the Mitchell family finally faced what they'd done, the whole town seemed to breathe different. Lighter. Like a weight had lifted that nobody knew they'd been carrying. And when Cole stood up at the town meeting and said he wanted to turn that old dead factory into something living, something that helped people, the room went quiet. Then Mrs. Alvarez from the bakery raised her hand. "I'll bring lunch every day," she'd said, and after her, hand after hand went up. Now, months later, the old factory had new paint and new windows, and a new name painted across the front in tall blue letters. The Emma Rose Hope House. Cole climbed down from the ladder and stepped back to look at it. His chest went tight. He'd never built anything before. He'd spent his whole life being the man people tore down in their minds before they ever said a word to him. And here he was, standing in front of something he'd built with his own two rough hands. A place for struggling parents, a place for tired veterans who'd come home to nothing, a place for anyone who felt the way he'd once felt. Forgotten. Alone. Sure that nobody would ever come looking. Somebody would come looking now. The grand opening came on a bright Saturday morning in the fall. The whole town turned out. Cars lined the road. Children ran across the fresh green grass. Someone had strung up banners, and the smell of Mrs. Alvarez's cooking drifted over everything. Lily wore a blue dress and held Emma Rose on her hip, bouncing her gently while the baby giggled at the crowd. When it was time, Cole stepped up in front of everyone. He wore his usual leather vest, his beard combed, his hands folded in front of him. He'd faced down dangerous men without blinking, but standing in front of these smiling faces, he felt his knees go weak. "I'm not much for speeches," he started. His voice came out gravelly. "Most of you spent a long time crossing the street when you saw me coming." A few people laughed, soft and warm. "I don't blame you," Cole went on. "I looked like trouble. Maybe I was once." He paused. His eyes found Ryan, then Lily, then the baby. "But a little girl showed me something I forgot a long time ago. That it's never too late. Not for a town. Not for a man." He swallowed. "This place is for anybody who's ever felt like nobody was coming. Because somebody is. We are." The crowd erupted. People clapped and cheered and called his name. Not that biker. Not that dangerous man. They called him Cole. They called him a hero. The years had a way of slipping by like water under a bridge. Cole sat in his old wooden chair on the porch of the Hope House, a steaming cup of coffee resting on his knee. The sun was just starting to climb over the hills, spilling gold across the garden the way it had that morning so long ago. The same soft light. The same quiet hush before the world woke up. But everything else had changed. Where the drainage canal had once sat cold and forgotten, there was now a garden full of flowers. Sunflowers stretched tall toward the sky. Tomato vines climbed up wooden posts, and in the middle of it all, a little girl knelt in the dirt, humming to herself as she poked a tiny green sprout into the soil. Emma Rose was 6 now. Her dark hair was pulled back in 2 braids that were already coming loose. Dirt smudged her cheeks and her knees, and she didn't care one bit. She had Ryan's gentle hands and her mother's brave eyes. Cole had never met Emma, the mother, but sometimes, Watching this little girl, he felt like he had. "Grandpa Cole!" Emma called, waving a muddy hand. "Look how big it got!" Cole leaned forward, squinting at the sprout. "Well, would you look at that?" he said. "You've got a green thumb, kiddo. Prettier garden than the whole rest of this town put together." Emma beamed and went back to her digging. Cole took a slow sip of his coffee and let his eyes drift over the place he'd built. The Hope House was full now, always full. Behind him, through the open windows, he could hear the morning starting to stir. Pots clanking in the kitchen, a baby crying somewhere upstairs, then going quiet as someone lifted it up. A tired veteran named Marcus laughing at something on the front steps, the same steps where Cole had once painted a fresh new door. So many people had come through these doors. Struggling mothers, fathers who'd lost their way, soldiers who came home to empty houses and emptier hearts. Every one of them had walked in feeling like nobody was coming, and every one of them had found out somebody was. Ryan ran the mechanic shop out back now. He taught the older kids how to fix engines, how to work with their hands, how to build something instead of tearing it down. He was a good father. The best. He never left Emma Rose's side, not for a single day, just like he'd promised in that hospital all those years ago. And Lily, sweet Lily, still ran the little clinic room down the hall, patching up scraped knees and broken spirits with the same gentle patience she'd always had. They were a family, not by blood, by choice. Cole closed his eyes and breathed in the morning air. He thought about the man he used to be. The lonely one, the angry one, the one who believed everybody he loved would leave, so he never let himself love at all. He didn't recognize that man anymore. Grandpa Cole? He opened his eyes. Emma Rose had wandered up onto the porch, her little hands still crusted with garden dirt. She climbed up into his lap without asking, the way she always did, and settled against his chest like she belonged there. Because she did. She looked up at him with those big, curious eyes. "Grandpa Cole," she said again, softer this time. "Are you really my grandpa?" Cole felt something catch in his throat. He looked out across the garden, toward the spot where a cold and frightened baby had once cried in the dark. Then he looked down at the warm, safe little girl in his arms. His voice came out rough and gentle all at once. "I'm whatever you need me to be, sweetheart," he said. Emma Rose smiled, satisfied, and laid her head against him. Down in the garden, Ryan called out that breakfast was ready, and Lily's laugh floated through the morning air. From inside the Hope House came the sound of voices, dozens of them, rising together warm and bright. The whole town seemed to be laughing, the sun climbing higher over Hollow Creek. Over the same sunrise where one rough man had chosen just once to care. I hope you like this story. Please share what's your favorite part of the story and where in the world you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.